There's no such thing as bad weather, only inappropriate clothing. A quote I stumbled upon years ago, and words that have stuck with me ever since. Being from Maine, I've definitely questioned this statement, but I've done my best to believe in it, even when shoveling 2 feet of snow in sub-zero temperatures. But as someone who does his best to prepare for the unknown, I can also find the deeper meaning in these words, as I'm sure you can as well. If you'll just stick with me, hear me out, I'll bring this all full circle and make sure it makes sense by the end of the video. I promise. If you're new to our channel or haven't subscribed yet, consider hitting that subscribe button and ringing the notification bell. Myself and Mrs. Wicked Prepared have a lot of exciting videos and projects coming down the line, so subscribing is the best way for you to see more videos you'll enjoy and to make sure you keep in touch with us. Now, back to my train of thought. What comes our way and how it affects us has little to do with what is actually happening to us, but everything to do with what we've experienced in the past, how we have prepared for the future, and the mindset we maintain throughout the ordeal. This world can present us with some pretty serious obstacles, but how we allow these hindrances to impact our lives is a direct result of how we are dressed, both literally and figuratively. Now, the obvious next scene in this video would be me dressing in several heavy jackets, a hat, boots, the whole ensemble, and going out in the middle of a blizzard and shooting a video, and then me telling you to make sure you have a jacket, a hat, and boots, the whole ensemble, when you go outside in the snow. But I'm not going to do that here. Oops, how did that get in this video? I actually want to start with a story that has fascinated me since I was a kid, and back then I didn't believe it was a true story. It wasn't until just a few years ago, when I decided to look it up and do some research, that I find that it was indeed a true story, and a pretty important part of history. In fact, most historians believe it sparked the Westward Expansion in America, and it also led to the invention of the bicycle. I'll set the scene for you, and do my best to keep this brief history lesson free from boredom. But if you could care less about the past, go ahead and skip ahead a few minutes in this video. I'll never know, so you don't have to worry about hurting my feelings. But please don't skip ahead too far, as later on I'll be talking about more current events and also 3 little tricks I never knew existed, and they have made all the difference for me this winter. Okay, so imagine yourself in this setting. James Madison is President of the United States of America. The entire world living without electricity and radio, and the graham cracker is 13 years away from being invented. The year is 1816. You are living in present-day Maine, but unfortunately, you're still considered a citizen of Massachusetts, as Maine has not become its own state yet. I'm kidding, but not really. If you know, you know. We'll start off on February 2nd of 1816. You would not have received news of Punxsutawney Phil's weather prediction, because that tradition did not begin until 1887. But you don't need a groundhog to tell you winter still has quite a few punches left to throw. Your family stays warm, huddled around the wood stove, knowing that in just a couple months, spring will emerge, the warmth will return, the snow will melt, and the plants will wake from their wintry slumber. Soon, your family will be planting the garden, eating fresh vegetables, and creating a stockpile for the following winter. Right now, you're freezing cold. But soon enough, the summer sun will be beating down, and the dark days of winter will be over. Except this year, the year of 1816. Well, winter never really ended. We now affectionately call it the year without a summer. But for those early Americans that struggled to survive even in the best of weather conditions, the year of 1816 was pure hell. Temperatures never rose in April. Frost in May put an end to any hope of a decent food harvest. Heavy snow fell in all of the Northeast in early June. In July, ice-covered lakes were reported as far south as Pennsylvania. Severe frost in August killed any remaining crops still living in New England. September and the months that followed showed no signs of relief as winter crept back in. Birds froze to death in the height of summer. Livestock perished due to starvation. People resorted to eating pigeons and raccoons just to stay alive. Disease and famine spread like wildfire. But it wasn't just in Maine, or New England, or the United States for that matter. The abnormally cold temperatures were widespread, causing disruption in Europe and Asia as well. Ironically, the Arctic experienced a significant increase in temperatures. So warm, in fact, it led British explorers to set sail through the region, taking advantage of the unusual absence of sea ice in order to map the area. The spring of 1817 began cool as well, but warmth eventually won out, and soon life and the weather returned to somewhat normalcy. Yet the year of 1816 would live on, detailed in journals and paintings, and told to each new generation. As I said, the story made its way to me several years ago. In fact, a customer of my father's had printed an article and gave him a copy, and that's how I had first heard of the event. It sounded so surreal, so fictional, so far-fetched, and my family passed it off as a tall tale. But it most definitely happened, and it lives on as one of the most destructive natural disasters in recent history. Researchers studying the year without a summer have concluded the phenomenon was created by the eruption of the volcano Mount Tambora in Indonesia. It began to erupt in April of 1815 and spewed debris into the atmosphere for 4 months. The eruption is, to date, the largest in recorded history, 10 times more powerful than Krakatoa in 1883. 4 other sizable volcanoes had erupted in the few years leading up to Tambora. Scientists believe in 1816 the collection of volcanic debris in Earth's stratosphere was enough to partially block the sun's rays, reducing temperatures by over 5 degrees Fahrenheit. When these volcanoes erupted, the Earth was already in the midst of the Dalton Minimum, a period of low solar activity which occurred between 1810 and 1823. I plan to do a video soon discussing solar minimums and the solar cycle, but for now, just know that many scientists believe we are currently at an equivalent point in our current solar cycle, with low temperatures, changing and unpredictable weather patterns, and increased volcanic activity. That determination cannot be accurately made until years in the future, looking back at the cycle that we're in now. But the solar cycles are just that, cycles. And if we know anything, it's that history repeats itself time and time again. Okay, so you may be asking yourself, Rob, why are you talking about volcanoes that erupted over 200 years ago? Or Rob, why on earth did I click on this video? Well, for me, it all comes back to the quote, "There's no such thing as bad weather, only inappropriate clothing." But you have to look at it beyond face value. It's deeper than just hats and mittens. Yes, there were a lot of deaths and illnesses that were a direct result of the weather in 1816, but there were also a lot of survivors. Humans weathered the storm and got through it. There were a lot of people dressed in appropriate clothing, or in other words, they were prepared. These were the people that didn't rely on others, the people that had an adequate supply of food, firewood, and other things they needed, the people that were resourceful, the people that were prepared. They had no way of knowing what that year would bring, but they got through it because they were ready for the unknown. Nowadays, as a society, we're much less self-reliant. We depend on farmers, truck drivers, and grocery stores to keep us fed. We rely on public utilities, heating oil and propane deliveries, and the power grid to keep us warm. As a whole, we have a lot less stress when it comes to surviving the everyday, compared to those living in 1816. But as we rely more on these systems, we are even less able to survive when left to our own devices. We are, for lack of a better term, softer than those that survive the year without a summer. But we do have one advantage. We know these events can occur, and we know what to expect. No, we can't predict when or where or exactly what will happen, but that doesn't make it any less important to be prepared, to have the appropriate clothing to weather whatever storm may come our way. Okay, so I promised you 3 tricks I've discovered for staying warm this winter. Now this is where the video focuses more on the literal side of the quote rather than the metaphor it creates. But I'm just so excited about these 3 things, I just had to tell you all about them. So I work outside a lot, and this doesn't stop in the winter. If I'm not working outside, I'm typically in my garage, which, even though it's heated, has a cement floor which is notoriously cold in the winter. Living in Maine all my life, and yes, I am a true Mainer, I've grown accustomed to the cold. That's not to say I'm a big fan, but I've come to expect it. January of 2022 just went into the record books as being Maine's coldest January in 13 years. We had several nights in a row with temperatures well below zero, with the wind chill bringing the temperatures as low as 40 degrees below zero. So like I said, while I'm not a big fan of the cold, I've grown accustomed to it. Along with that, I've gotten used to the fact that after working outside or standing on the cold cement floor for any length of time, my feet would end up freezing cold, my toes would go numb, and my hands and fingers would hurt from being so cold and wet. I've always worn waterproof work boots, sometimes doubling up my socks if severe temperatures were predicted, and I've always worn just regular winter gloves. Problem being, waterproof boots don't always stay dry inside, especially when they're covered in snow and ice. If I'm outside moving snow, sometimes I opt for actual snow boots, but any snow boots I've purchased have never felt extremely warm to me. Dry, yes, but just not very warm. And as for the gloves, when wearing them while working, all it takes is to hold a wood screw just wrong, or to catch them on a fence or a latch, or to pinch them between 2 pieces of metal. And as soon as the outer layer is ripped open, the inner layer soaks up water like a sponge and it freezes around your fingers. But I've always just lived with it. I'm never one to complain, and generally I'm someone that tries not to spend a lot of money on myself. Unless, of course, I get a whiff of Chinese takeout, and then I just can't control myself. But with a little research before going into this winter, I decided to make a change and spend just a little bit of money on myself, and boy did it make a difference. This is what I came up with, and I can't even tell you how much these 3 simple items have improved my life this winter. The first is a set of thermal insoles by 3M. Now, I was skeptical of these before seeing them in person, but now that I've been wearing them for a couple months, I can safely say they work and do exactly what they're supposed to do. They're thin enough that I was able to remove the existing insole from my work boots and replace them with these. Obviously, they don't help keep the inside of the boot dry, but they absolutely block the cold from penetrating from below, and that seemed to be my biggest problem, especially standing on a concrete floor all day. But I still wanted to do something to warm up my snow boots, and I knew I could fit more material in them compared to my work boots. So I found these natural wool insoles, and they are awesome. I absolutely love them. I can't even explain what a difference they make. The wool wicks moisture away from your skin and keeps your feet warm and dry. It's life-changing, seriously. And proof that there's no comparison between natural wool and synthetic materials. And then last on my list, and definitely the best thing I purchased before this winter, these are the Kinko Hydroflector gloves, and they are the toughest winter gloves I've ever owned. They're not super thick, which makes them perfect for working in the cold and still allows you to grip, turn, or twist anything you need. Now, I've had gloves that are slightly warmer, but none that stay as dry as these. I don't know about you, but I'd rather have my hands dry and a couple degrees cooler rather than soaking wet. I didn't believe it until I tried them, but they've been going strong all winter and are still in one piece, so that makes me one very happy Mainer. Now, this is just a small example of what a difference it makes to be prepared and appropriately dressed. Sure, the humans that survived the year without a summer did so without hydroflector gloves and thermal insoles, but we don't have to. There's no doubt those that survived were prepared in advance, even without knowing what was happening. In 1816, of course, prepping looked much different than it does for us today. And I'm sure in 200 years, people will look back at how we're surviving now and will be astonished by how primitively we live. Well, that's if our species continues to evolve and doesn't get wiped out or reset by an EMP. But that will be a whole different video I'll be doing very soon. All we can do now, just as those that lived in 1816 did, is take advantage of the materials, the technology, and the knowledge we have today to be sure we are as ready as possible for the next emergency, the next disaster, the next volcanic eruption, or even the next year without a summer. Because for all we know, that could be this year. We just never know. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Leave us a message down in the comments and let us know where you're watching from and what kind of weather disasters you're preparing for. We love to hear from our friends on YouTube and love knowing that we're reaching people from all over the globe. Thank you so much for watching. We truly appreciate each and every one of you. I'm Rob at Wicked Prepared. Survive today, thrive tomorrow. We'll see you.